Well, good morning everyone, or whatever time of day it is that you see this. Might not be morning, it might be evening or afternoon, who knows, or late at night. Anyway, we do another walkie talkie in this place that is rapidly becoming more and more full of rubbish. I'm noticing. Not good. Not good at all. Anyway, it's Friday. Hurrah. Last walkie talkie of the week. This week's actually gone quite quickly. So, yeah. Quite quickly indeed. Oop. Hope you're all doing well. Looking forward to the weekend. Bit of a chill. Not too bad. Not freezing, I don't think. Well, it's not frozen, but there is a definite chill in the air, in spite of the sun. Though the sun is nice, there's just no heat coming off it. Well, there is, but we're not getting any benefit from it. It's not like the sun suddenly become cold. Anyway, we'll quit gallivanting down that weirdo path. But it is a very nice morning. It's very pleasant, weather-wise. So, what have I been doing the past few hours since I last did one of these? Not much really. Just playing games, I suppose. Just the usual. My Silent Hill F turned up, which I think it worked out at about £58, I think. How it worked out at. And it is the day one edition. It says it on the box and it's got the codes inside. So again, patience will always beat the scalpers. That's why I always encourage people just to have a bit of patience with this stuff. And that's how you'll get rid of scalpers. It's the easiest way. You just got to be prepared to wait. Or to find other places that sell it. So yeah, that's pretty much that. So what we're going to do, chat about today, don't know. I genuinely don't know. But we'll figure something. We'll wing it as usual. It's what we do. Something will pop into my head. Got a good few comments on my previous video about how safe are our digital libraries, and I think it does dial into a sort of deep level of anxiety people probably feel, or maybe anxiety but concern at the very least, about how easy these things can go away and how quickly they can too. It is a fragile system, that's for certain. So yeah, here we go. Wrap up this bit and I'll see you all in the park. Here we are. So yeah, a Silent Hill game. I used up some of the money I got for Christmas for that. Whoa, we've got a big bird. Is that a heron? We have a heron. Here's a rare one. Oh God. Now, if I only had a proper zoom lens on my camera, I'd be able to get a really good shot of that. But there it goes. We do get them around here. You just don't see them all the time. Cool. So yeah, some of the money I got for Christmas I used to get Silent Hill F. So I'll have to try and create some space now on my PS5 SSD, or even though because I've got the expanded SSD as well for it. Actually, what I need to do is get some games finished so I can uninstall them. Isn't it ridiculous? What a ridiculous system. It's clearly not the best system at all. There's got to be a better way. I don't know how. Apparently part of this is down to the fact that it's to do with how fast data can be accessed, I guess. Optical media, accessing the data on optical media is possibly too slow, and the storage capacity as well. With 4K gaming, whether the capacity just isn't there, which I think might be behind why games are not fully contained on the disc these days. They'd have to give you 2 discs. Well, doesn't that say something about, is it really necessary? Are these higher resolutions really that necessary? I don't think they are, to be honest. Oh. No, I don't think they are. I mean, yeah, you can tell the difference between 1080p and 4K, but in the heat of a game, obviously it depends on the type of game you're playing. But I just wonder sometimes just how necessary is it? I don't know. I think like the pursuit of better graphics, I think, has come at the expense of practicality. It certainly has inflated the cost of developing games quite substantially. Has it necessarily given us better games? Well, that's it, isn't it? That's the $6 million question right there. I don't know. I don't know. It's hard to ignore the wow factor at times, but once you get over that, if it's all about the visuals and it's not really about the gameplay, that visual that visual impact diminishes, doesn't it? It was like when the FMV games, the full motion video games on CD-ROM came out in the 90s. I think it was like, oh my god, this is great, but the gameplay was very shallow in a lot of cases. You know, it was like, if you look at the Rebel Assault games, visually they were awesome. From an audio perspective, they were awesome as well. But the gameplay, the depth of gameplay wasn't really that great. I mean, you were basically just pointing and shooting. It was on rails. Not specifically those games, but many of the FMV games were on rails like that. They were like gun shooters, you know. They always looked very visually impressive. But there was no escaping the fact that they were very limited in terms of gameplay. And it's like once that novelty of being blown away by the visuals wears off, it's a very, very shallow experience after that. And yeah, it wasn't so bad in the early days when you didn't have games that were as deep, but when you get much bigger, in-depth games that had sacrificed some visual fidelity for more in-depth gameplay, then it really started to show. I can smell donuts. Where the hell's that coming from? I just got a whiff of like the sweet smell of freshly baked donuts. I don't know where that could have been coming from. There's no donut stand around here. I'd know. I would know if there was. I'd be like following the scent, like Homer Simpson. Weird. It's gone now. That's strange. Must have been coming from somebody's house. Maybe they're baking up some fresh donuts or something, or fresh bread or something. There's some houses over at the back there. That was strange. But yeah, I do wonder, about that. It's an interesting one, that's for certain. But what's the next step? Is it going to be 8K? I hope not. I'd rather get the better experiences of gameplay. I think we really do need to hit this wall of resolution and stuff. We need to sort of hit that and move forward with it and not become too preoccupied with higher resolutions, because at the end of the day, it's always going to be very limited in terms of where it can go. It's better to have an evolution of gameplay mechanics. It's always better to have, I think, better gameplay evolution. As said before, I would much rather the next gen focus on how games are delivered, how we access games, I think improvements and new philosophies in terms of making games more convenient to play, rather than, I don't mean just by downloading them, I mean by not releasing games that are not finished, and also on making it less intrusive in terms of having to jump through hoops just to get certain games to run. Single player should not need an online connection, period. But that's up to these hardware manufacturers to collectively do this, to put these stipulations in place. But they don't, so nothing will change. It'll be just more power, more teraflops, terminology that no one gave a crap about until, you know, these hardware companies started talking about that. I would suspect the average person, well, most people didn't even know what the hell a teraflop was. I just thought it was funny. It sounds like a Jerry Anderson puppet show, a spin-off of Terrorhawks. Do you remember the ridiculous thing? What was it? Levolution. Was that EA talking about one of the battlefields? And they come out with Levolution. And I just remember thinking, dear God, I hope you fall off the sodding stage, you silly bastard. Making up names to sell something. The fish AI in Call of Duty Ghosts E3, everyone remember that? The fish have their own AI. What a waste of bloody time that was. Who cares? It's like, what? And explain to me why that is going to enhance my gameplay experience for fish reacting in a way that I wouldn't know if it was scripted, or whether it's like, oh, we've programmed fish to have their own AI. You muppets. And this is one of the things why I push back against this idea of rising costs in games for nonsense like that. Because that's what it is. It's absolute nonsense. It's a load of rubbish. But that tends to be what happens, isn't it? You know, with this new power, we can do this. It's like, yeah, but nobody cares. Nobody wanted you to do that. So take it away. Don't stick an extra 10 quid on the price of your game because fish might swim in a certain direction differently each time I interact with that level. No, that's not what I want. But that's what they do. That's what they do all the time with it. It's just massively annoying. I remember all that on that E3. I just sat there laughing at the sheer muppetry what I was seeing on the screen. It's like, what an absolute dumpster fire. And just imagine the money that was wasted on all of that. And then they will go to you, the end user, and say, give us more money. Nah, you're all right. Actuality, Ghost was a pretty decent Call of Duty game, in fairness. It's just, I didn't need the fish AI, that was all. And the associated costs for that. I would have much rather had a few more levels. I would have much rather had a few more levels than that. Anyway. It's enough of that crap. You can smell it again, somewhere around here. Must be some place or another doing it. Yeah. It's making me hungry. I think I might try and get some more of my Doom footage recorded this weekend. I was watching a bit of Hugo Martin playing Doom 3 on. He had a live stream going. He's, I think, is it the creative director of Doom over at id? That was interesting to watch him play. Interesting to see where that series goes next, actually, because if you think about it, it's taken, since it come back in 2016, it's taken a few different twists and turns in terms of its sort of gameplay mechanic. So I'd be interested to see just how, what direction they take it in now. Really am interested to see what's next. Because the Dark Ages was quite a departure, and from what I've played of it so far, I say I've not really played through an awful lot of it yet, because I wanted to do a blind playthrough on the PC. It's quite good. I enjoyed it. I like the fact that they're trying to do different things, because you don't want the same game. And sometimes with sequels in particular, I think it would have been very easy with Doom 2016 to just, when they did the sequel and they did Doom Eternal, to just do the sequel to be more of the same. And that would have been great, but then what do you do with the third? I mean, there are always going to be certain things that can be viewed as missteps along the way. As you'll see when I do my Doom Eternal playthrough, the verticality, I've never been a fan of in Doom anyway. I wasn't a big fan of it in Doom 2. I really didn't like some of the vertical levels because you couldn't look up or down. I mean, you can with stuff like Jeezy Doom, but that's not how the game was meant to be played. So I don't want to do that. I don't want to play it outside of how it was meant to be played, control-wise at the very least. In terms of looking up and down, it ruins the experience, and it's not fun to play. And it's like that. I much prefer to play vanilla. As I say, I don't like using Jeezy Doom's control system to look up and down to play the original Doom series in. That doesn't interest me. It breaks the game. But at the same time, as I say, some of the very vertical levels in Doom 2, I'm not a big fan of. Because you can't see what's underneath you. Sometimes you can't see the jumps. And that becomes quite problematic when you've got certain jumps that you have to make. And then you're having to sort of do like a leap of faith. And that happens too much in some levels on Doom 2. But they had to try something different. And I do appreciate it. I mean, I do like Doom 2, but Doom Eternal was kind of the same in that sense, although you could look up and down. It wasn't so much leaps of faith. with Doom 2 was more a case of too much jumping. I didn't really like having to jump and grip onto those sort of walls. They had like the grating on them for you to grip, and some of them would be suspended in the air, and when you jump on them, you'd only have a few seconds before they would collapse and you'd die, or take a hit to your health. And I didn't like that. You know, I like the boots on the ground shooting things. But I can see why they did it. And it doesn't make Doom Eternal a bad game, because it's not. It's a great game. But those sections just sort of make me roll my eyes a bit, because it's like, oh God, here we go again. And it breaks the flow of the game up for me a bit too much. But that's just personal. That's just a personal preference. I do think that it's still an outstanding game. I really do. I think it's an excellent game. But yeah, I think when you're doing sequels, changing it up, doing different things, bringing new stuff to the table, I think is important, you know, in order to keep the interest levels going. Because otherwise you can end up with a situation where people just start going, oh, it's the same thing, I'm bored. And then people just start to turn off. I think I've seen that with Call of Duty. So I'm going to be interested to see what they do if they do make. I mean, I'm actually going to assume they're going to make another Doom game. I mean, it's been popular. It's you know, got a good following. It's been well received overall. You're always going to get the moaners, but that's just normal. So yeah, I'm fascinated to see where they take it. Sometimes you watch these live streams and hope that, you know, you'll get a little snippet. I'm looking forward to John Romero's. He's doing a mega wad, I think, for Doom 2, like he did Sigil. Sigil 1 and 2, I think he's doing something now for Doom 2. Is it Hellion, I think he's called it? That's what it's going to be called. So I'm looking forward to that. He was live streaming on a Friday for a bit, and he's not done it for a while, so I'm wondering if he's tied up doing that now, because I mean everything at Romero Games went into a bit of a shutdown because of the fact that there was Microsoft pulling the funding. Microsoft, you know, when they withdrew the funding and shuttered a lot of studios, he was affected. So, but I know they've subsequently got funding now. I'm kind of a bit confused because I don't think Hellion was the project he was working on for Microsoft, though. It might have been. See, the confusion is because Microsoft own Bethesda, and by extension they own id. It's a little bit confusing as to whether or not he was working on another game and Hellion was his own project, and Romero Games was making another game, another first-person shooter that hadn't been named or announced, or whether it was Hellion, or is Hellion the first-person shooter and the mega what he's doing for Doom 2 something else. I need to go back and look. I get confused. with all of this. So, but I'm looking forward to it anyway. I do like John Romero's games. I'm one of those that did actually like Daikatana. I didn't think it was anywhere near as bad as what people made it out to be. It was just a delayed game, like Duke Nukem Forever. It wasn't as bad as what people made it out. It was just a delayed game, and by the time it come out, it just felt dated because other games had come along that had better graphics and, you know, more up-to-date physics and stuff, and it just felt dated. But that doesn't mean to say that the game's rubbish. It just means it, you know, it came out after when it should have done. But if you go back and play old games, well then why can't you just use the same mindset as that? I'm playing an old game. It just, you know, came out later. It's a curiosity. I say I like Daikatana. The frustrating part was the AI of your sidekick. Getting himself killed or wouldn't follow you and stuff. That was pretty much the problem. Let's go back this way for a bit. Let's do a sort of clockwise circuit. You know, like I say, it wasn't. It was by no means a terrible game. I enjoyed playing it. It's just you had other games that came out at that time. You know, while that was being prepared. You know, you've got stuff like Half-Life and what have you. Quake 2. If you listen to John Romero talking about it, he'll tell you that he saw Quake 2 and was like, oh great, you know, that made Daikatana look positively old. But there's not a lot you could do at that point. He knew that he had to do what he can to update it, and that sort of threw the development cycle up the wall. You know, which isn't a great place to be in. So yeah, that's how it goes. Anyway. Duke Nukem Forever, I mean, that game should have been out like 8 or 9 years before it was. And that was delayed to hell. And you can tell that some areas of it don't look too bad, and then some parts look positively antiquated. And that's because of the length of time that it took. It's still fun. It's still enjoyable. Sort of gets on now with the whole issue of the length games are in development, and can that actually, how detrimental can that be? I mean, I think there's an assumption that Half-Life 3 has been in development. I don't think it has. I don't think Half-Life 3 has been in development at all. I mean, it would be very, very difficult to keep something like that under wraps. I mean, it's possible, of course, but Nah, I think if it was there, Valve would be using that as a carrot for the upcoming Steam Deck, and I suspect that they would have announced it already. You wouldn't wait. You'd want to build up the orders for the Steam Deck. So you wouldn't be waiting. You wouldn't be waiting until now. You'd say, look, this is going to launch with the Steam Deck, and you know, if you get the Steam Deck, it comes with it, and you might get it a few months earlier than the general sale, as a way to try to stimulate sales of the Steam Deck, I suppose. But nothing's been said. They could still spring it on us, but I doubt it. And part of the problem with that is it will never live up to the expectation. Part of me doesn't want Half-Life 3, because I know what the internet's like. It won't live up to expectations. People will complain. People will start, using it as a stick to beat Valve with. It'll be dissected to hell. And even if it's a good game, that'll still happen, because that's the nature of things. So part of me doesn't want it, and part of me obviously does, because I love the Half-Life games. But I just have this horrible feeling that, what's going to happen is, if it ever does appear, it'll just get mauled and beaten. And that's just simply because that'll get clicks. So, yeah. But like I say, at the same time, I still want it, because I love the Half-Life series, and in my opinion, I know they did Half-Life Alyx, but in my view, they need to finish the story properly. They never did episode 3. They stopped doing it. It was supposed to be Half-Life 2, then episodes 1, 2, and 3, and they did the first 2. Left you off on a cliffhanger, and then scrapped doing episode 3. Now, at the time, the conventional wisdom was that they did that because they were going to make Half-Life 3, not Half-Life 2 episode 3. But it's safe to say that a couple of decades down the road now, I don't think that's happening. Don't think it's happening. But it would be great if it did. That's for certain. It would be absolutely wonderful. But at the same time, I almost dread the negativity that will come with Half-Life 3. And it's a shame, because when you love games and you want more of them, it's a shame that you also feel that any excitement's going to be tempered. Not necessarily because you're worried that the product's going to be rubbish, but, well, not worried, but I just don't like seeing it, because a lot of the outrage is fake. A lot of the outrage about Duke Nukem Forever was fake. If you went and bought that thinking you were going to get a cutting-edge AAA game, I've got a bag of magic beans to sell you, it was never going to happen. How could it happen? The game was in development for 13 years. It went through development hell. It was stop, start, restart. I remember seeing some of the screenshots from when it was when it first started its development cycle, and it was totally different. They were like police officers with like tentacles coming out of them. They weren't in the final game. Even remember like Half-Life 2 as well. Whatever happened to that blue tentacle monster they showcased? Remember, the one that sort of impales that Combine guy, comes out of the ground and impales the Combine officer, soldier. That wasn't in the game. I remember when I first played it, I was like, hey, where's that bad guy? So, but like I say, I really enjoyed Duke Nukem Forever. I just thought it was fun. Take it for what it was. Just take it for what it was. Stop like building up this narrative around it of what it is, which it was never going to be in the first place, just so you then can be outraged because it doesn't then live up to the narrative you invented. Nobody else did. I think that was also the issue with Aliens Colonial Marines, another game that was in development hell. Of course it was going to look dated when it come out, because it was old. It was old tech, old game engine. It came out right at the end of the 360 and PS3 life cycle. Of course it was going to be dated looking, because it was. The big problem was the E3 fiasco with it. Where they clearly showcased footage from a game that was not the build of Aliens Colonial Marines that we got. That was something entirely different. That was it. That was the problem. And the game itself come out, it was representative of a game that had been in development since the PlayStation 2 era. That dials back to what I've said before about games being in development for too long. There were some good bits in Colonial Marines, and there was some horrendous bits in it. But that's what you get. At the end of the day, it's like, guys, we just got to get this out the door. Can't give it another couple of years. And when you look at it and go, this game's going to look like ass compared to everything else that's come out, then you have to make that decision, don't you? Do we scrap it and rebuild it in a new game engine and all of the associated costs that come with it? Or do we just see it through, get it out and, wash your hands of it, learn from it? Or will you have to do the latter? Because unless you are absolutely loaded, then going away and rebuilding it from scratch in a new game engine isn't going to happen. You have to make a decision. Unfortunately, there was a lot of hype, and like I say, what did in Aliens Colonial Marines was the E3 unveiling of a completely different looking game. That game looked cool. Graphically, it looked great, and it was not what came out. And that was the fault of Gearbox. That was the fault of Randy Pitchford trying to put off something that really wasn't what it was. But at the same time, he's between the devil and the deep blue sea, because you go and showcase the game as what it was really going to look like at that E3, he's going to get absolutely crucified. He's going to get hammered. And then at the same time, he puts it out as it is, and he's going to get hammered as well. This is what I say, it's important really that which way shall I go? Let's go this way for a bit, I think. It's important that you do hit your schedules, hit your targets. But in any event, I say even with that, still got some enjoyment out of it. All right, let's go back around and then finish up. I think we'll go with this one being releasing old games, releasing delayed games that look out of date. I don't think it's the end of the world, really. I just think you have to put it into context. If I'd have been Randy Pitchford, what I would have done, because it was Gearbox that also released Duke Nukem Forever, I would have pitched this as a curiosity release. This is what it is. I think in fairness with Duke Nukem Forever, he did kind of say that. They sort of bought the rights to Duke Nukem and then finished up Duke Nukem Forever as best they could. So I think in fairness he did say that, but that wasn't the case with Colonial Marines. And he should have done that. Like, look, this thing's been in development for almost an entire generation. We've cleaned it up. We've got it going as good as possible. And we're just going to put it out there because we don't want to lose it to time. That's what I would have done. That's how I would have pitched it. Pitch that, Pitchford. That was terrible, wasn't it? But yeah, that's how I would have done it. And maybe release it, £10, $10 cheaper than other games at the time. I would have done that. But I say those are lessons that they have to learn. That's what I would have done and would do with any game that's in development hell. Because that way you build yourself a bit of protection against people that are going to come on there and say, this looks like absolute ass. I mean, we know Gearbox can make really good games. We know that. I know he also outsourced Colonial Marines, I think, to a couple of companies. I don't think it was just one. And I think they picked it up from somebody else. And I think, as the narrative goes with that, the company that had been developing it originally, I don't think I'm not going to name names because this is me trying to remember something that may be speculative. So I need to caveat this with that. But yeah, they hadn't really done an awful lot on it for all the time it had been in development. So it kind of was a rush job to get it out. So you got to learn lessons from that. What annoys me is when dev companies and publishers don't. When they just do the same thing over and over again. Anyway, we'll call it there. I had a nice walk today. I have to do a little bit of editing. But yeah, it's a nice walk. I'll get this done. Get it edited, uploaded at some point today. And yeah, thanks for watching, guys. Hopefully it'll be like this on Sunday. It'd be nice to do a Sunday stroll where I'm literally not fighting bad weather. That would be a refreshing change. No one tomorrow because it's Saturday and it's Tis Was Day. If you know, you know. If you don't, it's because you're too young. Anyway, I'll call it. Thanks for watching, and I'll see you all later.